Hello and welcome to this episode of the Inter-University Debates here on Civic Space TV. My name is Philip Mulisa. In this episode, we are having a conversation in a matter that is subject of the electoral season that is underway, and we are pulling out the concept of electoral violence. In there, we know that through the campaign, on the trails, and everywhere in people's homes, in the different institutions, the political parties and state institutions, one thing comes out is the way we deal with people that are opposed to us. And we have seen in many occasions the state coming out to, by way of challenging those opposed to it, having what many people have described as arbitrary arrests. We've seen people being beaten. We've heard of disappearances of persons without trace and many other incidences that fall in that category. And today we're here to make sense of all that and certainly look at why we find ourselves in that position, what we can do about it today so that we have a better future, especially that elections are here to stay, and indeed we have to continue changing leadership every after 5 years. Now, joining me in that conversation is a panel of distinguished university students from the Republic of Uganda, whom I will invite to say hello to you, our viewers, and certainly we shall be heading into the depth of the conversation. I will start from my extreme right. Gentlemen.
Yes, please.
You're welcome.
Thank you. My name is Buinza Nelson. I am a year one student at Makerere doing law.
Buinza Nelson from Makerere, thank you so much for joining us, and we shall be glad listening to what Makerere has to share with us on this concept of electoral violence in Uganda. Next to Nelson.
Hello everybody, my name is Cynthia Lamaro. I'm a legal scholar at Makerere University.
Cynthia Lamaro again from Makerere University. Thank you so much for joining us, and we're waiting to hear what you will share with us from the legal but also the perspective of a Makerere student. And lastly, sir.
Hello everyone, my name is Kaka Andy. I'm a student at Chambogo University.
Mr. Kaka Andy from Chambogo University, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to learning and listening from you about this concept of electoral violence, but also painting a wider picture of what our campaigns look like and what we should do to make them better, but also what we should maintain so that we continue having the progress we want to see in this nation. And colleagues, electoral violence, and you see a lot keeps happening, and from the measurement of the different actors, the different observers, the different players, you get what they say, and people will say we are in a regime that doesn't want to see competition, that doesn't want to see opposition. Others will say, oh, it is actually government trying to maintain order in our society. Different observations. I want to quickly hear from you. You've seen the different activities in the electoral season happening, from voter registration and verifications to party primaries to party structure elections and now the national campaigns. First of all, what is your observation from this whole season, but precisely looking at the violence? What have you picked from the different areas you participate in, but also that you observe from the different media stations? And I'll start with the lady on the panel.
Okay, so I think firstly, just to understand conversations around electoral violence and the processes that have happened in Uganda, I think when you draw a comparative from other years that we've had elections in Uganda, I think this year there's been relatively low violence. However, in regards to just the observations, I think there's been an increase in voter turnout, which is okay. I think that speaks to how much civic education and civic engagement has been there within the public. However, just in terms of my opinion on what electoral violence is and then what it can be, I think it's on a twofold. I think firstly, it can be seen as a tool to oppress opposition, the extent to which there is disregard for public dissent by people in power. I think that can be an observation. But also secondly, I think the problem that exists within Uganda, there's been a normalization of a normative sort of like way of thinking, that whenever there's stopping of rallies or whenever someone is stopping a public gathering, there is some sort of dissent that is somehow going to be stopped. I think there needs to be an interrogation or an understanding of the context within which these things happen. Because oftentimes when you see electoral violence happening or when you see soldiers marching up, maybe there's been some sort of disintegration or some sort of disorganization within that particular space to that extent. That means that there is a need for you to have law enforcement officers to actually do what they're paid to do what our tax money actually tells them to do, right? To actually observe law and order. But that does not go as far as to say there are no instances where it's used as a tool of oppression to delegitimize dissent within like the public space. Thank you.
Oh, interesting. Thank you. Colleague Buyinza,
Yes, please.
what have you observed from the spaces you spend a lot of time in, especially looking at, you have an opposition party in the name of the National Unity Platform that is often accused of being violent, being radical, and they say that calls for the sort of actions we see from the Uganda Police Force, from the Uganda People's Defense Forces and other security agencies. What have you seen, and what does it tell you about the campaign?
Okay, firstly, I think there is a genuine need for the public to understand what a constitutional riot looks like. Because constitutionally, you are given a right to go against government if at all you feel like you are against the policies that are being made, because policies from government work on buy-in. At a point in time, the society or citizens don't buy into a particular a particular government policy, it means they have a constitutional right to go against that policy or go against government. But it only happens to the extent that you are not violent. It only happens to the extent that you are within the boundaries of what the constitution entitles you to do. So at a point in time that you go up in arms against the government because you feel like you need to have some kind of like measure to which you violently push for action against the government also has the mandate to make sure that they have like public order in place. So at a point in time that you have a radical political party that feels like the only way in which you can change government is when you have like is when you have violent riots, violent revolutions against the government, it means that it's also mandatory for government to go against that kind of particular unconstitutional revolution. However, I think there should be some level to which people understand the level to which they can go against government. Because when you're looking at a government which has the military behind its back, you must be able to understand that they can, at any point in time, use the military against you as citizens, which could be both good and bad. It's good in a way that it makes sure that people don't overstep into the boundaries or into the power of the government, but also it makes sure that the government keeps citizens in check. It's important because each and everyone needs to know the boundaries to which they can exist. But also, when you look at the comparison between the power of government towards citizens and the power of citizens towards government, there is always going to be a level to which government has more power against the citizens, right? Because as much as citizens are the ones that are going to be the end beneficiaries or the people that are impacted by the policies, governments most often work on coercion. So if government is able to fulfill its coercion, especially when it has military backing it up against the citizens, it's very hard for the citizens to go against it or to even ask, even when they're in the boundaries of constitutionalism. So there should be a level to which people that are backing the National Unity Platform should be able to understand the limits to which they can like force government to do things for them, and understand that the government is the one in power, and if at all they want to change the government, they should like stay within constitutional means. That is to say, you wait for the elections, vote against the person.
Do you think, in your observation, there are instances where members of the National Unity Platform or any other opposition party have gone beyond what you say are their limits, and certainly it called for the kind of action we've seen the government taking to sort of manage the situation that is always at play?
Most certainly. I don't think when they say you have a right to go against government, it includes you burning tires on the streets. It does not include you beating up policemen who have come to keep law and order. So many instances, to name but a few. So when the government says, because the government is not irrational to the extent that it can say that let us put military on the front, because government is held accountable by different international organizations, it's held accountable by different arms of the government itself. So at a point in time that the government has so many times and on very many different occasions put in place military to like combat that situation, it means that there is a level to which they understand that citizens have gone against their constitutional rights.
Wow. Thank you. Kaka, look, many times we hear the idea that youth, young people, university students and other people at that level tend not to understand what actually goes on in the politics. And the only time they come in is when they've been promised a bottle of soda or something to eat, so that they just come, just for the sake of coming. As you take us through what you've seen and observed in the ongoing campaigns, care to share with us, do the people you'll see in your circle actually understand what is going on in the country? But two, if they do understand, have they made a choice of where they're going to align come January 15th?
All right. I think the first question about choice, my circle, if I'm talking about my circle, of course, I think they all know what they're supposed to do. Some of them might not go to vote, and one of the reasons might be it's violent, and violence was going to happen either way in this election. Like Cynthia said, it's not as much yet.
When you say, just forgive me, when you say violence is going to happen either way, what do you mean?
It's very simple. I mean, either way you're going to get beaten by the police or you're going to be beaten by the army, because I don't think that law, I'm not a legal scholar, but I don't think the law says that after casting your vote at the polling station, you have to leave. But that's the directive that has been given by the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, which I don't think is right. After casting your vote and you stay there, and they tell you to probably go away, but you know it's your constitutional right to stay there and witness the vote counting so that it's transparent enough. The moment you stay there, because there is a directive, which is obviously wrong, you're going to get beaten anyway. So what I'm saying is that violence is going to happen. Another reason is I don't think a lot of people feel safe with the police next to them. I've been following the different campaigns that have been happening, and you see police attacking citizens unprovoked, right? You see videos where they just put pepper spray into your eyes, or they just knock you off your border, or you find 10 policemen clobbering an individual who is probably showing their support. And this happens in the opposition campaigns most of the time. It never happens in the NRM elections and all, simply because NRM uses the state machinery that is existent. If you go to an NRM campaign, the president is going to be there, the speaker or the deputy speaker of parliament is going to be there, different other ministers are going to be there, there's going to be the RDC, like it's just the state machinery against like them using the state machinery for their own good. So, like I said, even when Cynthia says that violence hasn't yet, like it's not a lot, and I agree with that, I still think it's too early for us to say there is not going to, it's going to stop at where it is right now, or it's going to continue. But I strongly believe it's going to continue, because you just need to look at the nature of the government that is the incumbent and his government, right? They always use violence and state machinery just to make sure that the opposition really doesn't compete fairly, which I think is wrong. But on my observation about violence, yes, it's very limited right now, but I think it's going to continue either way, and it might be much higher.
Oh, We discussed that a little more as we proceed with the conversation, and you say you just have to look at the nature of the government, and later on you have to tell us what actually that nature of government is in terms of how this season is being administered in our country. But and you quote Lamaro here twice about the fact that violence is not yet too much. And Cynthia, when you say that it is not yet too much, I want you to detail that a little bit for us. What is the standard of too much or too little violence in an electoral season?
Okay, so I'm just going to backtrack to, I think, 2017 elections, the one before 2021. And
Must have been 2016.
2016, yes. And that was the first time Robert Chagulanyi was contesting for to be a member of parliament, right?
Oh, you refer to the by-election where he became MP. Then.
Exactly. And at that time, Kamocha was a no-go zone area, even before the election. Like, even when he had just declared his interest, Kamocha was a no-go zone area. I'm speaking as someone who lived in Kamocha at that period of time. It was just so bad. The entire place was painted red, and you'd move in Kampala, you couldn't even wear a yellow shirt. And this was months before just the declaration of intent sparked that sort of animosity towards certain groups of individuals that show their support for other people. But even if you're to backtrack, like even if you're to move forward to like 2021, the extent of violence was so much that even by November, you couldn't move in Kampala holding a yellow ShopRite bag because you are going to be beaten up. And I'm speaking from like areas where I have seen these particular things happen. But we're in December right now, and we're seeing people having rallies. Yes, there's been police intervention, but the extent of violence is something that you can't compare to the previous years.
Who was beating up, whether you said, for example, holding a yellow ShopRite bag? Who?
Individuals, police officers, like everyone is engaged in beating each other up. I just don't understand how the country exists in such a state of anarchy towards election period. But like I said, these were things that you would have noticed in November, December, at the beginning of open air campaigns, at the beginning of rallies. But if you're to compare what's happening right now, I'm not going to say that these things have not happened. Yes, you have seen the police, I think, like last week in the West, where they clobbered like some people who are going to attend an NUP rally. We have seen that happen. But you see, it was in so much of a rise in the past period. Like you would just expect them. If it was in the previous years, right now the bus parks would be full. Why? People are going back to Ntungamu, to Gulu, to Kitgum, to the east. They're trying to leave the state of violence. Even within those particular districts, they don't want to stay within the city centers. They want to be in the villages because they're afraid of these things happening. Because obviously when you want to go for a presidential rally, when you want to go for a rally, you want to go to the most populated area in that city. You want to go to, let's say, if you come to Kampala, you want to go where you know people are going to gather. The extent to which people want to associate or live within those spaces was very limited. But right now, if you go to Kampala, you're going to see people moving there freely. If you go to Gulu, you're going to see people moving there freely. I think the extent of violence, yes, has decreased, but that is not to say that there's not been any sort of electoral violence.
Thank you, but before I let you go, you see, you give us a perspective and a thinking that actually you have violence from the side of the state, but you also have individuals within the citizenry that are also instilling violence to other people within. And first of all, I hear you question, how does a state exist in such a state of anarchy? But when, for example, members of the NUP meet members of political party X and they have a fight, or when members of political party NRM meet and have a conflict with another political party, is that political contestation? Is that criminality? Is that civil activity of the practice of engaging in an electoral season? Because this is an emotional season. The emotions are high. People want to die for their candidate. How do you describe this?
Nelson told you that there is a constitutional right for you as a member of a state to show dissent, right? But then there is also a constitutional right for you to engage in civil processes that includes elections. You get? But he also tells you that there are limits to which these constitutional rights exist. That is to say, if you are showing dissent for something, if you are showing dissent for an electoral process, it doesn't tantamount to justification for you going ahead and burning tires. It doesn't tantamount to a justification for you going ahead and beating someone for wearing, let's say, another color of clothes. I even heard you're beaten up for wearing an army print sort of like outfit. Yeah, these are things that are sold freely in the free state that we call Uganda. So yes, dissent does exist. And it is very personal. You see, political parties are sort of like religions where there is an innate devotion for you to that thing because one, you choose to belong to that party. No one forces you. You're not indoctrinated into those political parties. Maybe you belong to it because of like the ideologies that you see, or maybe because someone that you love so much supports that particular ideology, you belong to that political party. Because of that devotion, there is a sense of passion, like you said, that exists, that you want to support that ideology to the end where you want that person to win. I think there are other ways you can advocate for this person: actively campaigning for them, listening to the rallies, attending debates and asking questions, like showing dissent. If you think something was unfair, you can show dissent for it. You can have social media activism, right? You can have the petitions that exist. You can have peaceful constitutional riots, right? But people tend to show dissent in a way that they want to fight each other, right? Or they want to actively, because a certain political party X has like won, and because maybe you think that they're owned by other leaders, you don't even want to see the police because you think the police belong to those political party. Yet the military, the police people, these are neutral people, right? So there needs to be an understanding of a constitutional right and the extent to which you can show dissent as an individual, the extent to which you can advocate for political ideologies that you want as an individual.
Thank you. And Nelson,
Yes,
so you see, and she gives us a comprehensive description of what actually is happening in the streets, because when you go there, actually these fights are happening. And where does this take me to? The idea of or the practice of intolerance in everything we do, from the intellectual level to even down there. When you go to the border stages, you'll find people saying you belong to this party, so you can't be here. You belong to this, and she says it's more of a religion, and I think that takes us even a little further than. But I want you to understand, when you look at this sort of intolerance, when you look at the fact that members, when a member of the NUP is seen, for example, talking to a member of the NRM, then you are being bought, you are sellouts of some sort. When a member of the DP has a conversation with government, when a member of any other political party, and I want to ask you, even from a student level, when you're at the university, what sort of conversation go on at the political level? First of all, do you people even belong to political parties there? And if you do, what is the sort of engagement between members of the different political parties at the university?
Okay, firstly, about the question on belonging to political parties, there is generally, right now, from my perspective, there is generally not so much inclination towards political parties from my observation, from my end. But I think when we get into the election time, there is a level to which people in more generally, because I've not like attended any voting, but there is a level to which there is an inclination towards National Unity Platform. It's very rare for you to see that someone is a guild president and is affiliated to NRM. There's a level to which National Unity Platform has its strength in the younger generation, and I think that is both strategically wrong and good at the same time. It's wrong, it's strategically bad for them because very many of these youths, very many children that are part of its support are not constitutionally allowed to vote. They are 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds who don't have IDs yet, who don't have voter IDs yet, who haven't been registered. So it could be strategically wrong because it gives you a wrong populace. So you assume that you have the numbers, and yet the numbers are mostly part of people who are below the voting age. It's strategically good because that's actually the biggest number of people. So it gives you some kind of confidence to say that you can be able to become president. However, on the intolerance, I think there's a level to which the reason as to why there is a general concession on this panel that this election has been relatively peaceful so far is because I think there is a level to which we have learned to tolerate people from other political parties. Or if not that, there's a level to which we have accepted that the election process is going to happen anyways, and that some person is going to become president anyways. There's a conversation on whether or not people should keep on supporting Chagulanyi, to the extent that even people who could be tagged as National Unity Platform members are people who keep on like treating him as someone who cannot actually lead them.
Let's discuss that consensus, and especially about the levels of violence. The Honorable Chagulanyi, I think 2 days ago, was in Masaka. Through the journey to Masaka, there was police roadblocks, there was tear gas, there were people caned. The same happened in Kawempe, the same happened in Buyukwe, the same happened in Mukono, the same happened in Mbarara. When we say there is a level of the violence is not there or is little, if you have people beaten, if you have tear gas, I think we have registered so far 2 deaths from gunshots at the campaign rally. The description that the violence is still low, okay. In terms of what?
Okay, I'm gonna get to that. There are two types of violence in my perspective. There is violence that is between citizens. To say that because Cynthia is an NRM supporter, me as a National Unity Platform supporter, I'm going to clobber her, I'm going to beat her, right? That is the first type of violence, which is most profound, because I believe for the military to come and like say that they're trying to keep peace and order between the citizens, there is a level to which citizens themselves have already begun the violence within themselves, which has been relatively lower in this current election. And then I think the military itself engaging in citizen behavior or engaging in like what's happening in the public is a second type of violence, whereas military and citizens go against each other. That is the kind of violence that is happening right now when it comes to like NUP. However, the question should be on why is it that the military itself is so much engaged on mostly one person? Because even the examples you only give about Robert Chagulanyi. Is he the only person that has held rallies so far? Why is it that when it comes to Chagulanyi himself and his political party, there is so much intention? We are so intentional on finding out, was there military engagement? Have there been any deaths? There is a level to which we need to understand why is it that we only look at one political person or one political party. And
why is that?
And that's what I'm getting to. I think the people that are supporters of NUP or the people that are part of that political party are the people that are part of the first cluster that I gave to you, citizens versus citizens. I think there is a level to which, and this is just my opinion, right? I think there's a level to which citizens who are part of the National Unity Platform are very violent, to the extent that now it makes the state easy for them to say, we are going to look at this particular person, or we are going to be very intentional on finding out the footsteps of this person. And that is why there is a level to which you then question on whether it is the NRM against NUP, or whether it is the NRM, or whether it's about the military versus the citizens. Because at some level it could look like it is the NRM government or Museveni against Chagulanyi, but to an extent we need to be real and understand that there is a level to which citizens themselves call for the violence to exist, because themselves are the people that begin the violence itself.
Thank you for that. And speaking about the violence, calling the violence, Kaka, one of the things that come up as we talk about the violence and the disagreements that happen between persons is the idea of a tribe, such that when particular statements are made, people refer them to a particular tribe or a particular religion, a particular sect in our society. First of all, in your view, and especially looking at, for example, the society you live in at Chambogo, how much is our politics, is our leadership, even at the level of guild presidents and so on, is the politics linked to our identity in terms of tribe, in terms of religion, in terms of the different things that divide us in society? How much is it deep in there, and what is the response, the reception from the people you see dividing themselves beyond these lines?
Okay. First of all, I never participate in elections at Chambogo because I think the process itself is laughable and so funny the way it happens.
What does that mean?
It means the systems that are supposed to make sure the elections are free and fair. You know, we have been talking about violence and how it happens in NUP and other opposition rallies in the presidential campaign. Chambogo, it's the same thing, right? When you have campaigns going on, you find police and army all over the institution, and they're clobbering people in classes, they're beating people. You have to enter the gate when you've probably shown your ID. I think it's a good thing for people to identify themselves, but I also don't think you can wake up and go to the university if you don't study there, right? I just think the process itself as a whole is just one that is laughable. So when
there is
elections,
over-regulation.
exactly, it's not free. So when elections are going on at Chambogo, I usually don't go. But if I'm going to talk about the tribalism aspect of it, like affiliation of political parties in terms of tribe, I don't think it's a lot at the institution. I think it's fairly average, but I also think, like Nelson said, people don't buy into NRM a lot at the university. They prefer the National Unity Platform or even the Uganda Young Democrats, which is the youth wing of the DP
Democratic
movement.
Party.
Exactly. So in terms of tribalism, it's just if someone is contesting under the NRM tickets at the university, and most of the time they are Nyankole, right? That's their tribe most of the time. If they're holding the NRM ticket, that's their tribe. So I really don't think it's there, but when you affiliate it to the NRM party, it's like obviously there because for the past 2-3 years I've been there, anyone who is contesting using the NRM ticket is from that same tribe that I just mentioned. It's like they don't have any other people that buy into them, like apart from, because the chairperson is also.
So what you are
NRM.
saying is, for example, for the national resistance movement, there are so much, it is easier to sell it to persons from the western part of the country, and there is, so what is it with the NUP and
again,
DP and FBC?
I'm not saying it's everybody from the West that is going to buy into.
No, I said it's easier to sell it
Yeah,
to
it's
them.
easy. Most of them will buy into it. Basically for reasons like, oh, I know someone who is contesting, or they just love the party, right? And I also think the reason NUP is popular is one, because it's popular among the youth, right? Because of the founder. I think we don't have a lot of like, I'll use the word common sense, or like content that comes from the party in and of itself, and that's my opinion, right? I don't think there's a lot of content that comes from the party, but the way in which they do a lot of their things like campaigns, and the way in which they relate to the youth in terms of like the creativity aspect of music and all of that, it allows the youth to easily buy into the party, right? That means it's very hard for you. For example, the guild president that was expelled from the university, I don't think the individual himself had like content or a plan to probably make a change for the university as a whole or for the student community of the university. No, I just think most of his campaigns was mad with bringing artists and artists performing, and they even had a song for themselves. And
I mean, this is a politician who
Yes.
is looking at masses.
I
This
get
is what
that.
you, his constituents, want to listen to or see.
No, I don't think you become a leader because you want to entertain people. No, you don't become a leader because you want to entertain people. Yes, your campaigns might have people dancing and all of that just for the for the entertainment, yes, during the campaigns, but you have to have a plan. This individual that we are talking about, who is part of NUP, and I'm going to share this story. He came to class one time, 2 weeks after being elected, and he wanted to fight my lecturer. We're having a lecture in class because his friends who are part of our class missed a test, and the lecturer said, I'm going to talk to you guys after the test. So the notion that they're also violent as an institution, I've witnessed it firsthand, because the institution is made by individuals that run that institution. Without those individuals, the institution probably won't run. This was an NUP Chambogo Guild president, and he wanted to fight the lecturer in class. So if he can do that, what would stop him from probably beating like they said, beating someone who is NRM or wearing a yellow shirt? What would, if they can beat the lecturer? What can also stop them from obviously having scuffles with the police?
So in other words, you say that that sort of conduct at that small level is actually represented even out in the wider national unity platform.
Exactly. I don't think Honorable Chagulanyi as a person is violent. I think the people that surround him, especially the youth that get rowdy and support him, I think they are the violent ones, and the people that represent the values of NUP. Because most of the value that you're going to look at, it's going to be violence. Most of the people, when they see an NUP rally, even when they know probably police is not there and the army is not there, they still know these individuals are going to be violent. They will probably want to loot something of yours if you're selling it. And I think that is bad because, like he said, the violence is at two levels, right? There's that one between citizens. And once you instigate it, police are then justified in some of the actions that they do. Yesterday, Bobby Wine wanted to, I think, use the bypass, I think, to go to Kira. And that is a very busy road, and people are always using it. And when he's using that road, obviously business will come to a standstill. His supporters are probably going to shoot at people that are driving past. You get the point. So that means it gives, their actions give the police or the military the chance to justify their actions. We can come and pepper spray you guys. We can come and shoot bullets in the air, and some of them might obviously get to you, and the police will justify it. I think if they stop being violent, then the police also won't have to justify their actions with what they do in terms of the violence.
All right, thank you, Kaka, for that, and we're going to pause it at that and head into a very short break. We are here on the Inter-University Debates and having a conversation about how we conduct our electoral processes, the campaign season, the violence, the disagreements, and indeed how best can we conduct ourselves to see that we have a successful process. We head into a very short break and we shall be right back.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media, or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Welcome back from that very short break. It is the Inter-University Debates here on Civic Space TV, and my name is Philip Melissa. Today, we are having a conversation around electoral violence, around our disagreements and how we handle them during the electoral season. And you and I know that it is underway in this beautiful Republic of Uganda. Joining me in that conversation is a panel of distinguished citizens of this country, Uganda, who are sharing their insight, their opinion, their fact, and indeed what they think we should do to make sure we have a better country as Ugandans. And where we left off, we are having a conversation around the lines of division in our society. And Kaka here was detailing to us about how the constituents of Chambog and largely outside there relate to each other in terms of tribal lines, religious lines. And Lamaro, I'm coming to you on this issue. You see, throughout the history of Uganda, you will hear stories of how particular groups of people resisted government, how particular groups of people resisted specific policies. When you read independence history, you read about the concept of a state within a state, where Buganda was saying, we want our own independence, we don't want to be a part of Uganda. When you go through, you will hear that through the Amin administration, there was a particular tribe in the country that was privileged and others had to be subject to that. When you listen to the Obote history again, they will tell you there was another part of the country and tribe that had more privilege than the other tribes, and you will hear that other tribes were contesting that sort of arrangement. When you hear the coming into now the NRM government, again you hear people talking about their tribes. And one key one you can talk about, for example, through the 90s, you read about stories of, because I know maybe, at least all of you were not there in the 90s, so these are things you should just read about. We had a problem of disagreements at religion level. The Muslims, you had a lot of conflict in the Muslim constituents of our country, and not to say that it has disappeared. One would say they are still existent, but a bit managed better than they were at the time. But also the political parties we belong to, some of them are allegedly, they say they were started based on a particular faith, Catholic, Anglican, Protestant, and so on. And even our state, there is a way our state is fused with specific religions. And I want to hear from you, when you look at how activities are unfolding out there in the different spaces, how much is the tribe, is the religion still important for our people, and how much is it shaping, one, the conduct, but also the outcome of the election next year?
Okay, I think firstly, there needs to be an understanding of the religious backgrounds of political parties. The reason why certain political parties were built on religion in and of itself was not an African ideology. It was something that was brought to us by the Europeans. That's why when Ben Chiwanuka was forming the Democratic Party, he had to be of an Anglican faith, because Catholic. Yeah. When he was forming the Democratic, he had to be of a certain faith because that was the faith that was being favored at that time. There are also political parties that were formed around the Islamic religion because of the presence of the Arabs within Africa. And then we had the Kabaka Yeka party that was also formed to prioritize the Buganda people. That was that the historical context help us understand what happens right now, right? Because these things were formed because of the European, they had their own religious wars that were happening. They had their own religious interests that at the end of the day influenced the formation of these political parties. But I don't think you have to belong to a certain religion right now to affiliate yourself to a certain political party. I don't think that's something that exists currently anyways, right? But I have seen within certain places, certain institutions, where for you to win, you have to be an Anglican, you have to be a Catholic to that extent. But with the rise of these particular things, we have seen Christians from FDC, but you've also seen Muslim people from FDC, right? I don't think there's religious affiliations that are tied to these particular things. Tribal, however, I think there's a rise of tribal affiliations to political parties. Kaka has just told you, it's easy for you to sell the national resistance movement to people from the West. That is not to say you don't have Northerners that subscribe to NRM, right?
I mean, in 2021, President Museveni won overwhelmingly in northern Uganda.
Exactly. That is not to say that you don't have people from those ends. But the religious, the tribal affiliations to political parties exist. When you go to the north, it's very hard for you to see people wearing red berets. That is not something that is very popular among them. But go to Masaka, come to Kampala, go to this the tribes, the districts that have a lot of Baganda, you're going to see the affiliations. Why is that? Where is there that that tribal affiliation to a certain political party? I think the only way you can explain it is because of the person at the top. The reason why there is a lot of people from the central that affiliate themselves to NUP, it's because the person at the top is a Muganda.
So Lamaro, and in that, because when you explain that pattern, one would ask, you see, through the many elections we've had over time, it is only until, I think, 2021 actually, that President Museveni lost overwhelmingly in central regions.
Exactly.
And we understand he's not from the center, he's from the west. What explains the shift from one candidate to the other? These are the same people, but you see that support, for example, for President Museveni is shrinking in the center and maybe increasing in the different parts of the country.
You see, as individuals, we are born to maximize our preferences, and that's something I'm not going to lie about. As Africans, we are born to prioritize ourselves. It's very easy for me.
Is it an African thing?
It is an African ideology. It is culture. It's very easy for me to prioritize Kaka as a brother to me when I'm thinking about certain things, right? If Kaka is contesting for, let's say, a post, I'm going to be inclined to understand Kaka's manifesto first because he's from the north before listening to other people, right? That is not to say I'm not going to listen to their ideologies, but he has what we call the first mover advantage because I am like in an essence related to him. In the north right now, right? We don't have a presidential candidate that is like contesting from the north. A popular listen, I'm gonna give you a chance. We don't have a presidential candidate that is contesting like there. So we don't have now to say, oh, let's vote for like the best like northerner that's contesting, right? Now we are looking at other people and what they bring to us from the table. In 2020, before 2021, the people that were contesting from the central were not as prevalent as Robert Chagulanyi was. We had people like Abirizi, Abed Bwanika, Maureen Chalia. All these people existed from this particular place, but they were not as prominent. But because the person that was contesting had built up a base, he was an MP first, he was a musician first, he had a certain level of collection, he was able to get the backing people like Joel Senyunyi that was prominent in the media space because he was a TV journalist, right? So he had a lot of backing, he had a lot of popularity from the central. So now you're more inclined to vote for the person that is from the central. And I kid you not, if Norbert Mao had gone for the presidential seat, he would have a lot of votes from the north because he's a northerner. This is something that is entrenched into culture. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but it's a fact. It's a mannerism of human beings. It's something that they're inclined to do by virtue of the person. They're most likely going to vote for the person who they feel more closely related to. I feel like he's going to be more able to understand the problems of the north more because maybe he grew up there. He speaks the language. He's able to decentralize power to a level that can help people at the down level. It's very hard for you to relate with certain people in the central, and that brings me to the problem, right? The reason why Museveni most likely won from the north in 2021 because he went down there. His ability to relate with the people from the north is what made people vote for him. The extent to which most times political candidates want to contest to the people where they are from, where they already have a fast mover advantage. They don't prioritize other sectors within the country, and I think that's what fails them. That's why most of the votes come from where they are from.
All right, thank you so much. Maybe, but I want to disagree with you, and maybe again, you very powerful people will guide me on that. I don't think driving first move advantage narrative from the perspective of brother or sister or tribe mate is just an African thing. I've seen, for example, President Donald Trump say, "Don't vote for Mamdani because he's not American." I've seen people in the UK say don't vote for Rishi Sunak because he's Indian. I've seen across in the world. I don't think it's an African thing, but
Yeah.
it's subject to
But you see now, that is different. That is different from cultural backgrounds. That is now a question of descent.
What she's trying to say is that it's overly prevalent
Because
in
we
the
have many
African
tribes.
setting.
Exactly. The UK doesn't have many tribes. It's gonna be very weird for me to go and contest for to be a prime minister in the UK, and I'm going to have all that support. I am strange to them. I am African. I have grown up here. So it's different. Obviously, you're going to. That's why we have issues of xenophobia in South Africa. You're going to obviously have some sort of antagonism towards people you don't know. But within Uganda, we have grown up in the same systems. The only thing that then differentiates us is the tribe.
All right, Nelson, what should be the role of the tribe, the role of the religion in a modern state?
Okay, wow, that's a really good question. Okay, the role of the tribe and religion, two things, yeah? So I'm just going to backstep a little bit. I think we have grown to be indoctrinated in two different religions, right? That you grow up, you're baptized into a religion, you don't choose to be part of that religion, but because that is all you have known your entire life. That is why it is very hard for someone to say, I'm shifting from Islam to become a Christian, because your parents are going to obviously antagonize that idea. I think the role of religion itself is to put people in shape. That is why the entire idea of religion runs on the same aspects, on the same ideas. Love your neighbors, you love yourself. Share with society, charity. Charity helps you. We're all working for heaven. We're all working not to go to hell. That is to say that it helps you keep in check. But also, a lot of things that are embedded in the constitution run on religious ideas. But there is that level to which religious morality works hand in hand with constitutional morality. That is to say that don't kill someone, do not steal your neighbor's property, do not admire your neighbor's wife. That is why the constitution tells you that we only even when they say customary law versus customary law not being repugnant to the constitution or being repugnant to written law, they tell you that we only recognize monogamous families. That is the same that is the same ethics that works with religion. That you must only have one wife, don't commit adultery.
It is also true that where the constitution comes from is where religion comes from. So
yes, so the entire idea of religion in society is to make sure that people are kept in check, but also the religion itself exists in society not because people being affiliated to religions doesn't exist because they want it to happen, but it's because it's something that has been indoctrinated into them. There is a level to which we normalize being in religions to the extent that we are not okay with being part of another religion. And I think the problem then comes in when that you not being okay with changing your religion turns into you being antagonistic to another religion.
And when you say that, so I get to ask, when you look at, for example, in the politics, when you look at in the education, when you look in business, is religion, is tribe important in those spheres of managing our society?
Importance to an extent. I think religion in politics, DP is prevalently a Catholic political party. UPC is prevalently a Protestant political party, even way back before we got independence.
Are they
right?
even today?
Even today, we see that DP itself has so many Catholics, but like Cynthia told you, there is a level to which people nowadays do not really care so much what the religious inclination of the political party is. However, we have seen people move from DP to NUP. We have seen people move from a Catholic political party into a more liberal political party, not because of the religious ideas, not because they are tired of religion, but because they want to get into a political party that is going to give them some kind of like populace within the people. We have seen numbers that move from DP, show as a really prevalent member of DP, move into NUP, because nowadays people buy in more into what the political party can give to you in terms of policy, in terms of publicity, because politics itself is run on numbers. At a point in time that you're in a political party that gives you numbers, you then have an added advantage. That is why I think even though there is some level to which people would say, oh, I'm inclined because of religion, they would look at where do I have an added advantage to the extent that I'm going to be able to win in terms of like winning the political.
I have seen political players across the board in the country, instead of using their party structure to do the campaign, they actually use religious infrastructure to do the campaign. So they're at a church every Sunday, they make donations at the other church, they're at the mosque, they're at the cultural institution. Speak to that.
Okay. When we say religious inclination, it speaks to someone saying, I am part of DP because I am Catholic. The scenario you have given is to say that I go to church not to pray, but to make sure that I get numbers. Like I said, the objective of politics, people who are in political parties, elections themselves run on numbers because democracy is majority over minority. How do you get the majority? You go to places where the majority exists. When you go to church,
the church is important because the politician needs numbers, and there is a huge constituency of Catholics who are at that church on that Sunday.
Yes, because church is a community. Community gives you votes. You go to church. You find a Muslim person going to church on a normal day. If the person wasn't looking for votes, how many times would that person go to church? So is it about that religious inclination, or is it about collecting the masses?
All right, thank you for that. And very important to note that a lot of these things keep happening in our society, and you get people who recklessly will refer to their positions and their activity as based on their identity, as opposed to the calling to serve the people they stood to serve in that particular country. Kaka, political prisoners. I have heard the National Unity Platform, for example, say they are, until today, I think that the last list they released had about 186 persons that have allegedly been arrested, abducted by the state during the course of this campaign. But they also say there are others that were arrested in 2021 that are still in the prisons, and they do not know where they are actually. We also know of a list of people, about 20 people who were pardoned by the president, I think in 2023, who again the NUP claimed were members of their party, and it was out of negotiation that they were released. And even the FDC 2016, they'll tell you have people 2011 and so many others. I want to understand, first of all, what is it with political prisoners? Do we have that category of people in our society? But two, why do we keep, if they are there, why do we have them? Why are they not brought to flow through due process to make sure everyone knows what they did and where they are and things happen?
Okay, I'm first going to start by saying I don't think you should have asked me that question because I'm not a legal scholar. Should have actually asked this too, but I'm going to try my best to
you don't have to give me the
answers that I
legalese.
can.
Just give me what is that?
Yeah, okay. So I'm just going to talk about the history of NRM, right? And the ruling party, obviously. I think the ruling party has been, from how they got into power and to how, I don't think in the first few years when the constitution is being made, up to around 2005, before they started playing around with it like it's just anything, I think the government was doing a pretty good job, right? I wasn't there probably in the 90s, but I read about it, and it seems they were actually doing a good job. Now, fast forward to 2005, was that when we had the elections?
The referendum to multi-party system.
Exactly. Then we had elections in 2006, then 11, 16, and 21. I think the government tries to silence people because these the people that are affiliated to these presidential candidates and political parties, essentially, those political parties cannot run without them. There are people that do the little things, right? Like media, like security. The political party or these candidates can survive without them, yes, but it reduces their ability to compete fairly, right? So I think, first, if you look at the videos that way, I think about 2 or 3 weeks ago in Western Uganda, where one of the people that was pardoned by the president, I don't really remember her name, but
Olivia Lutaya.
yes, that's Olivia, was pardoned by the president, and she was rearrested again. Personally, I don't think she did anything wrong, right? She's only supporting her candidate. But if you see how she was violently arrested and then thrown back in prison, and here's the problem. I am not really good with how the prisons, like the whole legal system works. But I know when you've been arrested, you should probably be produced in court in 72 hours.
So for
Yeah,
example,
so
48, but maybe for
48.
example, as because you mentioned Olivia Lutaya, for example, and there are about 3 things that have been mentioned in the context of those people, for example. One, participating in what they've called a military drill. 2, they say that they were linked to vandalism, but also stealing of police property, as the NUP candidate was campaigning in Arua. But 3, there is a video, I don't know if any of you has seen it, on social media, allegedly by Olivia Lutaya. There is a person that looks like Olivia in that video, and she's saying, I am, I think she attaches a particular military rank to herself, and she says, we are this great and don't provoke us, and you general so and so, we shall show you, and something like that. There is that video, and I want to ask, for example, if such happens, for example, you have someone that is verbally provoking, or they have said provoking, others have called it insulting, and is saying he's a military general, how should the state respond to that?
First of all, I am going to be very clear. I don't know, but I don't think that is a crime for you to speak about whatever you need to talk about. And even if it's a crime, right? Vandalism and what was the other one? Conducting military drills. I don't think you can come here, anybody in the right senses can come here, that even if that is a crime and they did that, and tell you that NRM doesn't do that, right? But they are never arrested. So you cannot convince me as a state or as the police that you think, oh, these guys vandalize property, these guys conduct military drills, or these guys wear boots or army property or something, because that happens with the NRM. You find them conducting military drills, you find them doing processions, which I think people are allowed to do processions as long as they don't interrupt the business or they don't like inconvenience other people. But the police only and the army attacks the NUP supporters. That is targeting.
So there is selective application of...
You can't possibly justify that. There are videos, right, that as of this morning were on social media of NRM supporters being loaded into a police truck and taken to the venue where the campaigns of General Museveni are supposed to happen. I think even when you want to justify that those people have done a crime and they deserve, and I don't think they deserve to be there for 4 years, 5 years without being taken into the courts of law. I also think that is a bad thing. But you can't possibly justify that when you have it going on each and every day during the campaign period, and it's going on with the NRM supporters, and they're never reprimanded, they are never arrested. So the law is selectively applicable to certain individuals, or some individuals are just above the law, because that is what the government is trying to tell you. And again, no one deserves to be in prison without going to court and a judge probably ruling on them. Kizza Besigye has been there for some time. There was even a Supreme Court ruling about where he should be tried. He was released. The gentleman was rearrested again. So, but there are individuals and there are laws that are made or amended in the Constitution. They will take a week or 2 in the parliament just because they want to target certain individuals. When we're coming through to this election period, the parliament amended some part of the Constitution, which I don't remember, that says you're not supposed to wear military attire. They're even talking about boots that are sold freely on the
I
market.
think that was a part of the UPDF amendment
Exactly,
bill.
the
Yes.
UPDF amendment bill. I don't have a problem with that, right?
And I also think that's the same law that speaks to what you talk about
Right.
out of the Kavazguruka
Yeah,
case. Then
exactly.
they talk about trial of civilians in the military courts.
Again, I don't think you have a problem. I think they also play with a lot with the constitution, and it has been normalized. I don't have a problem with that. But the thing is, if you're gonna play with the constitution and make sure, and for me, I personally think that amendment was targeted to the NUP people, right? So if you're gonna amend that constitution and you think it should be applied a certain way and that should be the law, there's no problem with that. But apply that law wholesomely. Don't apply it to certain individuals. You see probably musicians like Bebe Cool putting on army attire, and they're not clobbered. They are performing in front of the president. They are performing in front of probably the IGP, the district police commander of that place, and they are also cheering them on. And you think that is fair? I don't think that is fair in any way.
All right, thank you so much for that. And Lamaro, look, the confrontations are persistent. Citizen to citizen, state to citizen, political party A to political party B. How do we manage ourselves through this season so that we seize on the confrontation, seize on the fights, seize on everything that may damage us as a people, as a country, and going forward have a peaceful and a process that follows the law, that follows due process, and indeed by 15th January we can say we had a successful electoral season.
Okay, I think there needs to be an interrogation of the class of people that is confronting the other, because it's very unlikely for you to go to the street and find someone in a suit from their work job and they're going to beat up a police officer. It's very hard for you to find someone who actually has something to do going to beat up a police officer. What am I trying to lead at? I think then there needs to be targeted civic education, targeted towards the groups of people that are actually directly affected by these confrontations. Because at the end of the day, young people are going to support their political members. I'm probably going to go to the north and attend a rally of Okimbi Piojara because I align with his political ideologies, or personally I feel like I want to support him, right? But when the electoral violence is happening, when the confrontation is happening, I am the one who is most likely going to be affected. He's probably going to be carried away by, taken away by bodyguards, or he probably has defense systems, right? My dad at home, he's not going to be affected. My mom coming from her job, she's probably not going to be affected. What am I trying to lead to? Most of the people that are working class within Uganda have understood, have a certain level of either civic education or apathy towards the electoral processes. Apathy in a way that they don't care enough to go and attend these things. But civic education is that when they care enough, they respect themselves enough not to engage directly in electoral violence, right? Secondly, even if you're to argue that maybe the young people are the ones that mostly attend these rallies, most of the young people that attend these rallies actively live on the streets, right? They maybe work in town, they work in the arcades and all these particular things. And this is where you find the conversations around most of these people being paid by other people to go and cause disorganization, right? Because they're vulnerable. They're vulnerable to manipulation. They're vulnerable to bribery. They're vulnerable to all these particular things. If you target civic education within highly youth-involved platforms, as opposed to just a short 30-second advert on Sanyu FM or a 30-second advert on UBC, if you targeted them to institutions like Makerere University or Chambogo University, because university politics is partisan, right? So if you target civic education to these particular places, if you targeted them to these arcades, to these places where there's a high youth population, to the slum areas, to the non-slum areas, as long as it has young people, there's going to be an ultimate reduction in these things.
One would ask, and as you drive that point home, Makerere University, Chambogo University, whichever university you want to talk about, but also looking at the statistics of the Uganda Bureau of Statistics, I think they've told us that about 85% of the population of Uganda are people that have gone to school. A person that has reached university, is that a person I still need to tell that when you throw a stone at a police officer, they might shoot you?
But you see, civic education is different from just being educated, right? And I kid you not, if I was not doing law, I would have no interest in politics. And that is just to speak to the level of interest in these things that people have. Most people within systems, within universities, care about individuals, right? If I go to MOOBS, I most likely want to, if I want to go for chief fresher or guild president, I most likely want to contest under the branch of DP that exists there, because it's a trend, it's a culture, and there's a rise of, like, let's say, violence within these particular things. I'm just going to speak, last year, there was a presidential debate at Nkumba University, and these people were retaliating because they felt like the questions that were being asked to their candidate were more difficult than the ones that were being asked to other candidates. And the police had to be involved. The police had to take away the moderators that were asking, that were not even from that university, that were asking the questions. That's the level of the education that exists. People have their degrees, but they're still doing these things. So there needs to be an interrogation. But secondly, there needs to be strict policies. UCC had UCU had elections. There was no violence at all. And I'd love to think that's because of the level of enforcement of regulations that exist within that thing. If we don't enforce it from where politics starts at university level, it's very hard for these particular people to not carry their values outside when there's even limited enforcement. So if you breed a culture of perfect electoral processes right from university level, there's most likely going to be what you call a ripple effect on a national political level. Because most of these people, after contesting for guild, you'll find them on the National Youth Council, you'll find them in these places. If they're able to propagate those values on a national level, but when you start from university, you're less likely going to have issues of violence.
All right, thank you. And Nelson,
Yes, please.
what do we do? The problems are here. We have a country to save. How do we move forward to see that, especially at the lower levels, these wrong ideas and activities that do not get into the young minds, so that even in the future, as we see turnovers, we don't have the same activity, we don't have the same fighting, the same polarization in our political activities in the country?
Okay, we do exactly what we have been doing, but to an extent that we push for it to like the grassroots. Cynthia tells you that people have a ripple effect. When people move from university with the values that are being imparted into them, they then impart the same values into the people. I would like to assume that the people that hold elections at UCU, if at all it is actually true that there was no violence at all, are people that came from institutions where those morals were inflicted into them. So they look at how they can be able to like move those very morals into a society in which they are leaders. So if the grassroots are like, if the grassroots are places where we have better civic engagement, where we have a political engagement, where people do not actually have violence, then I think that can ripple into having a society or a system where the current leaders that could happen in that society are people that have imparted the values that were imparted into them when they come from the grassroots level. But also, I think the other problems that go beyond violence, like you say tribal inclination, religious inclination, I think that is not a problem that is going to go away soon, unless people say that they now no longer care about their inclinations towards those particular institutions. Because I think when people say that they're inclined to Robert Chagulanyi because of his tribe, it goes beyond saying that he's just a Muganda. It goes to say that because someone is a Muganda and they have an inclination towards their tribe, someone from that very tribe is going to have is like going to have a better is like going to have like a better standing point when they're campaigning towards them. That is to say that the inclination of people towards tribal political parties is based off their inclination towards those tribes themselves. That is to say that the inclination that Muganda has towards the Kabaka, if at all that inclination does not go away, then you cannot say that you're going to like take that out of the take that out of status quo. I think then that begs the question on saying that should that remain a problem, or should it be seen as a problem, or how do we then go towards saying that we have a way to mitigate the problems that come out of that inclination?
All right. Thank you so much for that. And colleagues, the conversation is very sweet and important, but our time is very much fast spent. I have notification from my producer that we have, I think, about 1.5 minutes to be out of here, but we are not going to leave without doing this. You see, we are heading for the Christmas break, and I will give, I think, 30 seconds to each of you to just pass a Christmas message to, I don't know, your people, your university, as we conclude. So I think, I don't know, where do I start? I think he has just spoken, so it's only fair that we start from this side. Just a brief Christmas message.
I don't know what a Christmas message looks like, but I'm just gonna say it was nice being on the show, and yeah, you can go vote if you want to, because nobody's gonna force you to go vote come January 15th. And also, yeah, enjoy your Christmas.
Thank you. Now that's a Christmas message. Lamaro.
I won't speak a Christmas message because it's gonna be testament to my religious inclination. But
Christmas season, not the religious Christmas.
no,
it's a
exactly.
holiday.
Yes, please. But it's gonna be testament to my religious inclination, lest I start preaching for you guys. But
You are Adventist.
No, it was lovely being here. Thank you for having me.
All right, and do you also have reservations about Christmas?
Not really. I just want to say to the viewers, Happy Christmas, Merry Christmas. Don't go into violence because you want to vote for someone who won't uplift your policies. Happy Christmas.
Well, my people here are struggling to give a Christmas message, and on behalf of you, the viewer, I will interrogate what that religion is that has challenges with Christmas. But certainly, thank you so much, colleagues, for joining us for this conversation. Beans, Nelson, thank you so much for your thoughts and for joining us today. Lamaro, Cynthia, thank you so much for your thoughts and for joining us in this conversation. Kaka, Andy, thank you so much for your time and for making time to join us here on this conversation. And to you, our viewers, thank you so much for keeping it the Inter-University Debates and the wider Civic Space TV. Special thanks to the technical team that keeps making sure we do all we do here, and special thanks to the Center for Constitutional Governance and all our partners that are part of this journey of these young people and everyone in the country making a contribution so that we build this country, Uganda, for posterity, for greatness. My name is Philip Melissa, and let me say, may you all have freedom, always.